My parents said I had 24 hours to leave. Their house, they forgot my name, is on the deed. Pack your bags. You have 24 hours. Mom's words hit like ice water as she stood in my kitchen doorway, holding a Starbucks cup like a weapon. The steam curling up from her grande Pike Place roast seemed to mock the cold fury in her eyes. Dad appeared behind her, waving a printed email with the confidence of someone who'd never actually read legal documents. "Our lawyer says we can legally evict you," he announced, his voice carrying that particular brand of self-righteousness that had haunted my childhood. "What would you do if the people who raised you tried to steal everything you'd worked for?" Little did they know, I had my own legal surprise waiting in the Franklin County records. Before you judge my response, hear the whole story. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and 6 months ago, I thought I was just a people-pleasing marketing coordinator at a mid-sized agency in downtown Columbus. The kind of person who brought coffee for everyone, stayed late without being asked, and said, "sorry," when other people bumped into me at Target. Then COVID happened, and everything changed. The layoffs hit our agency hard in March 2021. One day I was coordinating social media campaigns for local restaurants. The next I was cleaning out my desk while my boss avoided eye contact. My parents, Bob and Linda Mitchell, owned Bob's Auto Repair, a small shop that was hemorrhaging money faster than a blown head gasket. "Come home temporarily," they said, "just until you get back on your feet." That was 3 years ago. The house purchase happened fast. Grandma Betty's life insurance policy came through, $47,500 that was supposed to be my emergency fund, my independence money. But Dad found this perfect 3-bedroom ranch in Clintonville, and suddenly we were all at Premier Title Company signing papers. "Joint tenants with right of survivorship," the notary explained. "Equal ownership regardless of who paid what." I thought it meant we were finally a team. The basement became my domain. String lights from Amazon creating fake stars on the ceiling. Thrift store furniture arranged just how I liked it. I had my routines. 6 a.m. Dunkin' run, medium iced coffee, oat milk, extra shot. Taylor Swift's Folklore playing during my 25-minute commute downtown. Sunday tuna casserole dinners where I bit my tongue while Jake got praised for basic adulting. Last month, I found the HOA violation notice stuffed behind the coffee maker. Tree trimming overdue, addressed to Sarah Mitchell as the primary contact. Not Mom, not Dad. Me. When I asked about it, Mom just shrugged. "You handle the house stuff now, Sarbear. We're getting older. Older, but apparently not too old to plan my eviction." My parents saw a spinster daughter living in their basement. I saw someone keeping their house out of foreclosure. My mortgage auto-pay had been covering the $1,180 monthly payment to Wells Fargo for 38 months straight. The new roof after the storm damage. $2,800 from Mike's Roofing, paid by my Chase Sapphire card. The HVAC system that died last winter. $6,200 for a new train unit, financed through my credit union. The property tax bill arrived 2 weeks ago. Franklin County Treasurer, addressed to Sarah E. Mitchell as primary taxpayer contact. 3rd year running. I'd been getting the notices, writing the checks, filing the paperwork. When had I become the responsible adult in this equation? Zillow said the house was worth $85,000 now. We'd bought it for $21,000. That's $75,000 in equity, and I'd funded every improvement that created it. My Netflix habit included true crime documentaries playing while I paid bills at the kitchen counter. Weekend Target runs where I bought household supplies parents never replaced. At work, I was known as Reliable Sarah, who never missed deadlines but rarely spoke up in meetings. Part of me still wanted to believe they'd never really kick me out. The other part remembered how they'd sold my childhood piano without asking when I was at college, claiming they needed the space. Some patterns never change, but maybe it was time I did. The first red flag came through Instagram, of all places. Jake's fiancée Emma posted a story from their venue tour. Elegant ballroom, chandelier lighting, the works. The caption read, "Thanks Mom and Dad for making our dream wedding possible." I screenshot it before it disappeared, my hands shaking with something that wasn't quite anger yet. We were talking about a wedding that would cost more than most people's cars, funded by equity from a house I was paying for. When I confronted Jake, he just shrugged. They said they had it handled, something about selling the house after your lease is up. My lease. That was news to me. What lease, Jake? I co-signed the mortgage. My name is on the deed. He looked genuinely confused, like I'd started speaking Mandarin. Really? Dad said you were just helping with payments until you found your own place. The family group text that night was illuminating. Mom. Family meeting tomorrow. Important decisions to make. Jake. About time. Emma and I need to know the wedding budget. Dad. Sarah, make sure you're home by 6, not, can you be home, or, would you mind? Make sure. Mrs. Chen from next door pulled me aside the next morning while I was getting my mail. 70-something retired librarian always knew everyone's business. Sarah, honey, your parents asked me to keep an eye on you, she said, her voice gentle but concerned. They said you've been acting difficult lately. Are you feeling all right? Difficult. That was Mom's favorite word for any woman who didn't immediately comply with demands. I'd been difficult when I chose marketing over teaching. Difficult when I dated someone they didn't pre-approve. Now I was difficult for existing in a house with my name on the deed. The family meeting turned into an ambush. Dad had prepared a spreadsheet, color-coded, printed on premium paper, the works. According to his financial analysis, my total contribution to the household was $12,000. Not $7,500 for the down payment. Not $4,480 in mortgage payments. Not $19,000 in home improvements. $12,000, calculated as rent equivalent, minus utilities and food. We've been more than fair, Mom said, using her teacher voice from back when she actually taught elementary school. But Jake needs to start his own life, and frankly, so do you. The realtor's business card was already sitting on the counter. Diane Williams, Century 21. We already talked to someone about listing, Dad announced. Spring market's hot. We could have this sold by May 15th. That gave them exactly 4 weeks to cash out my equity for Jake's wedding and honeymoon fund. What about my share? I asked, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. Mom's laugh was sharp. Your share? Sweetie, you've been living here rent-free for 3 years. If anything, you owe us. Have you ever had family members completely rewrite history to benefit themselves? Drop a comment. I'm starting to think this is more common than I realized. That night, I sat in my car in the Kroger parking lot, stress-eating Cheez-Its while running calculations on my phone. Even if they sold for asking price, even if I got 1/3 as a co-owner, the way they were talking made it clear they had no intention of giving me anything. My hands were shaking, but not from fear anymore. Anger felt foreign in my chest. I'd been trained to feel guilty instead. But $8,000 isn't guilt money. It's theft money. Love shouldn't cost everything you've worked for, right? Or was I being selfish like they always said? I opened my phone and texted my college roommate Maya. She was a paralegal now, worked for a legal aid clinic downtown. Sarah, emergency. Can we meet tomorrow? Legal question about property ownership. Maya, of course. Panera in Short North, usual booth? Sarah, perfect. And Maya? I think I'm finally ready to stop being the family doormat. Maya took one look at me across our usual Panera booth and ordered an extra coffee. We'd been splitting Mediterranean veggie sandwiches here since college, but this felt different. More serious, like the conversations you have before everything changes. Start from the beginning, she said, pulling out a yellow legal pad. And I mean the beginning. When did you sign what? I walked her through the timeline: the life insurance money, the house hunt, the closing at Premier Title Company. Maya nodded, taking notes, asking questions about notaries and witnesses and deed language I'd never paid attention to. "Sarah," she said finally, "your parents can't evict you. Legally impossible. You're not tenant and landlord. You're co-owners in a joint tenancy. That's a completely different legal relationship." The relief was immediate, but Maya wasn't done. If they want to force a sale, they'd have to file a partition action in common pleas court. That's a lawsuit, not an eviction notice. Costs money, takes months, and you'd get your share whether they like it or not. She explained it like she was teaching a law school class. Co-owners can't evict each other, period. What my parents were threatening was harassment at best, fraud at worst. 20 minutes and $2 later, we had the deed pulled up on the Franklin County Recorder website. Instrument number 2021-089547, recorded March 15, 2021. 3 names listed as joint tenants with right of survivorship: Sarah E. Mitchell, Robert L. Mitchell, Linda K. Mitchell. Equal ownership, equal rights, equal say in any sale. "Maya," I whispered, staring at the screen. "They've been lying to me for 3 years. "Or lying to themselves," she said gently. "Sometimes people believe their own bullshit so hard they forget what's actually legal." Maya had me check my bank records while she called a realtor friend about current market values. Wells Fargo's online portal told the whole story. My parents hadn't made a mortgage payment since October. Not a single one. Autopay from my checking account had been covering the full $1,180 every month, plus the $45 late fee when their payment bounced. They weren't just trying to steal my equity. They'd been stealing my mortgage payments for months. If you found out your parents had been lying about money for months, would you confront them immediately or gather more evidence first? I chose evidence. Here's why. That weekend, I drove to the Wells Fargo branch where we'd gotten the mortgage. The loan officer, Patricia, remembered our application. "All 3 names are on the note," she confirmed, pulling up our file. "Joint and several liability. But sweetheart, you've been the only one making payments for months. Your parents' credit scores have dropped below 600. They couldn't qualify to refinance this loan without you." The power dynamic I'd never understood suddenly became crystal clear. They needed me more than I needed them. They just hoped I'd never figure it out. The real estate attorney's office sat on the 15th floor of a downtown Columbus high-rise, with windows overlooking the Scioto River. Rebecca Chen had practiced property law for 20 years and charged $400 for consultations. But Maya swore she was worth every penny. "Joint tenancy," Rebecca said, reviewing my documents. "Clean deed, proper notarization. Your parents threatening eviction is like, well, it's like me threatening to evict my law partner from our shared office. Legally nonsensical." She spread out papers on her conference table like a general planning battle strategy. 3 options, she explained. Negotiate a buyout, force a partition sale, or call their bluff and stay put. "But here's what your parents don't know," Rebecca continued. "Without your mortgage payments, they're looking at foreclosure within 6 months. Their credit's too damaged to refinance, and the bank won't modify a loan for borrowers who aren't actually paying." Option 1. Partition action. File suit in Franklin County Common Pleas Court. Force a judicial sale. Split proceeds 3 ways. Cost: $3,500 in attorney fees, plus court costs. Timeline: 4 to 6 months minimum. Option 2. Negotiated buyout. Parents buy out my 1/3 interest for fair market value minus transaction costs. Faster, cleaner, but required them to actually have money. Option 3. Status quo. Keep making mortgage payments, stay in the house, let them stew in their empty threats. That leverage came from an unexpected source. Jake's fiancée, Emma, called me directly the next day. Her voice was shaky, on the verge of tears. "Sarah, please don't ruin our wedding," she said without preamble. I know there's some family drama about the house, but Jake's parents promised us $8,000 for the venue and honeymoon. We already put down deposits. $80,000. The exact amount they'd get from my share if they sold the house and kept everything. By the time we hung up, Emma understood the situation very differently. "Oh my God," she whispered. "They're stealing from you to pay for our wedding." The certified appraiser Rebecca recommended valued the house at $28,500 in current market conditions. Minus the outstanding mortgage balance, Wemfee means $6,800, realtor commission, 6%, FON, $17,100, closing costs, $3,500. Net proceeds would be approximately $1 to $7,600. Divided 3 ways, $3,567 each, but a negotiated buyout could net me closer to $85,000, $9,000, depending on how much they wanted to avoid court. Maybe this was what growing up actually meant, choosing yourself when no one else will. They came prepared for war. Sunday, 2 p.m., around the dining room table where we'd shared 1,000 meals. But this wasn't dinner. This was an intervention. Mom and Dad flanked by Jake and Emma, all 4 wearing expressions that suggested they'd rehearsed this conversation. I sat alone on the other side, my evidence folder neat beside my placemat, feeling like a defendant in my own home. "Sarah," Mom began, her voice dripping with patronizing sweetness, "we need to discuss your living situation. As a family." The word family landed like a weapon. "We're doing this for the family. Family comes first. Don't be selfish. Think about the family." Dad opened his leather portfolio and pulled out official-looking documents. "We've made some decisions about the house," he announced. "Jake and Emma need stability, and frankly, it's time you learned to stand on your own 2 feet. Jake leaned forward, trying to look sincere. "Look, sis, we know you've helped out with some expenses. We're prepared to give you $15,000 from the sale as a thank you gesture." $15,000 for a house where I'd contributed over $8,000 and held equal legal ownership. "That's very generous," I said quietly, sliding the deed copy across the table. "But according to Franklin County records, I'm entitled to 1/3 of net proceeds as a joint tenant." Dad barely glanced at the document before producing his ace in the hole. A quitclaim deed, signed with what was supposedly my signature, dated 6 months ago. "Actually, sweetheart, you signed away your interest when you moved back home. Right here." He tapped the paper with his finger. "Witnessed and everything." The forgery was almost impressive. My name in handwriting that resembled mine, dated and formatted to look official. Almost. I pulled out my phone and dialed Rebecca Chen's office. She answered on the second ring. We'd arranged this call in advance. "Rebecca," I said, putting the phone on speaker, "my parents are claiming I signed a quitclaim deed relinquishing my ownership interest. Can you explain why that wouldn't be legally valid?" Her voice filled the dining room, clear and professional. "First, quitclaim deeds in Ohio require notarization to be valid. Second, joint tenancy can only be severed by specific methods outlined in the Ohio Revised Code. Third, any attempt to coerce a co-owner into signing away property rights could constitute fraud." Dad's confident smirk began to fade. "Additionally," Rebecca continued, "joint tenants cannot evict each other. That's a landlord-tenant relationship, which doesn't exist between co-owners. If the other co-owners want to force a sale, they'd need to file a partition action in common pleas court." "What's a partition action?" Emma asked, the first words she'd spoken. "A lawsuit," Rebecca replied. "Expensive, public, and time-consuming. Takes 4 to 6 months minimum, and the court would order the property sold with proceeds divided equally among all co-owners, regardless of contribution amounts." The silence that followed was deafening. Jake's quick mental math was almost visible. No quick sale meant no wedding fund. Emma's face went pale as she calculated the timeline. "She can't do this to us," Mom said, but her voice lacked its earlier conviction. "We raised her. We gave her everything. You raised me to be strong, I said, standing up. And then you got upset when I finally used that strength. Dad waved the fake quitclaim deed again. This is valid. We have witnesses. Do you have a notary stamp? I asked. Because that signature was never notarized, which makes it worthless under Ohio property law. You're going to ruin our wedding over money? Emma said, tears starting. I'm not ruining anything, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm protecting $87,500 of my own equity from being stolen. If you need money for your wedding, maybe ask for a loan instead of demanding I gift you my life savings. For the first time in 28 years, I watched my parents realize I wasn't their pushover anymore. It felt terrifying and incredible simultaneously. The negotiations took 2 weeks. Not the dramatic courtroom showdown I'd sometimes imagined, but a series of awkward phone calls and tense kitchen table discussions that felt like emotional surgery without anesthesia. Rebecca handled the legal framework while I handled the family dynamics, a combination that proved surprisingly effective. The final agreement was simple. My parents would buy out my 1/3 interest for $85,000 within 60 days. They'd refinance the mortgage without my name, assuming full responsibility for future payments. How they'd manage that with their damaged credit scores wasn't my problem anymore. Jake's wedding scaled down from country club elegance to community center practicality. Instead of the $8,000 windfall they'd been counting on, my parents managed to scrape together $15,000 for venue and catering. Emma handled it with more grace than I expected, eventually admitting she'd always preferred intimate gatherings anyway. I'm sorry, Jake told me 3 weeks later, catching me as I loaded boxes into my Honda Civic. I didn't understand what was really happening. Mom and Dad made it sound like you were just being difficult. I was being difficult, I said, taping up a box labeled kitchen stuff. Turns out that's sometimes necessary. The first night in my new German village condo, I ordered Thai food and ate it straight from the containers while binge-watching Schitt's Creek. The silence wasn't lonely, it was peaceful. I'd never realized how much energy I'd spent walking on eggshells until I didn't have to anymore. Coffee tasted different when no one was judging your choices. Sunlight streamed through windows I could open without asking permission. The air conditioning hummed at exactly 68 degrees. My choice, my electric bill, my comfort. Small freedoms that felt revolutionary. My condo in German village faces east, which means morning light filters through gauze curtains I chose myself, casting soft patterns on hardwood floors that belong to me. The smell of fresh coffee mingles with eucalyptus from the diffuser I splurged on, creating a sensory sanctuary I never knew I needed. I wake to silence instead of anxiety. The gentle hum of appliances I picked out. The soft throw blanket draped over my reading chair. Navy blue with tiny stars, purchased without asking anyone's opinion. Some evenings I just sit in my living room, feeling the texture of that blanket between my fingers, and smile knowing nobody can take this feeling away from me. My parents and I have settled into a cautious respect. They invite me to family events, but don't guilt-trip me when I decline. Jake's wedding happened on schedule, smaller but still beautiful. Emma's maid of honor toast mentioned family members who taught us that love means wanting the best for each other, even when it's complicated. 6 weeks after the buyout, Jake texted me, "I get it now. Sorry I called you selfish." At 29, I had my first genuinely healthy romantic relationship. Turns out, knowing your own worth makes it easier to recognize when someone else values it too. Building our support network. The response to my story has been overwhelming. Let's help each other with the boundaries we're all struggling to set. What's one piece of evidence you wish you'd kept in a family financial situation? How do you handle the guilt when family calls you selfish for protecting yourself? Share your experiences below. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is remind each other that we deserve respect, especially from people claiming to love us most. I learned that protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's survival. Sometimes the people who taught you to be strong are the same ones who get upset when you finally use that strength.